Hello and welcome to another episode of the Maxi-Geek Show. Today is Friday, July 22nd, and this is episode number 28. It's been a hodgepodge of a week in news this week. We have a bunch of release dates, a bunch of delays, some reveals of new things, updates on games. It's been very, very, very weird. A lot of that is probably due to it being San Diego Comic-Con this weekend, and some companies like Capcom and Konami are going to be there showing off their various games. And then, we're 3 or 4 weeks away from Gamescom, so, probably expect to see a lot more news, at the end of next month. But yeah, there's been some good news, some weird news, and, some very, very, not obtuse news or anything like that, but just some weird news. But we'll get into that in a moment. But let's start off with some good release date information. The first one being that the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Cowabunga Collection has a release date. So we learned this game was coming back in March. I think it was March, during the PlayStation State of Play that they did earlier in the year. It's all the Konami developed titles from the arcade, the NES, Super NES, the Game Boy, and all that. So I'll just throw the old trailer on here while I talk about it. So as always with these collections that Konami have done, it is filled with music and art and all that to enjoy. There's wallpapers for when you're playing the games. It does feature the ability to rewind. If you do fail. If you die, you can rewind a game. And as you just saw there, if you're watching the video here in the trailer, it does offer online multiplayer, so online co-op. So no longer do you have to have 4 people crowded around a console. You can just play online with it. In terms of what is included, there are 2 games from the arcade. So TMNT. I'm not going to say Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles every single time because that would get very old very fast. But TMNT, and then the sequel Turtles in Time. Then we get the NES port of TMNT. Then we get the arcade version on NES. It's a bit weird, that one. Then we have the Manhattan Project as well. And then finally we have Tournament Fighters from the NES. For the Super Nintendo, we have Turtles in Time. And the Super Nintendo version of Tournament Fighters. Oy. Then on the Genesis, or the Mega Drive here, we have Hyperstone Heist and Tournament Fighters again. So we have Tournament Fighters 3 separate times. And then on the Game Boy, we have Fall of the Foot Clan, Back from the Sewers, and Radical Rescue. So, they're the same games as they always were. They're just, now going to be playing on your Switch or your PlayStation 5 or whatever platform you happen to be on. The big thing, of course, is, as you're playing, you'll be able to have different backgrounds depending on the game that you're playing. And there's all the artwork and everything that you can unlock to enjoy later on. So, it is getting a retail release in the US. We do expect that to come here. We just haven't got a confirmation on availability yet. That should probably come in the next day or so. Though I've said that, and now I'm just thinking, maybe I should just double check my email. It will be here. So it will be here for $70. There you go. I'm very excited for it. I remember playing those games a lot, especially the arcade versions. In the trailer there was the one sequence with Leonardo swimming through the sewers with all the purple seaweed or whatever you wanted to call it. That thing is a nightmare, but it's still fun to do. So. That's what we're looking forward to. Another game that got a release date overnight is Dragon Ball The Breakers. Unfortunately, it is a silly name, but it is a Bandai Namco developed title, so much like Square Enix, they have to have silly names. But Dragon Ball The Breakers is a 7v1 multiplayer game, where 7 players will team up together as survivors, and then one player is sort of the bad guy who hunts them down. It is essentially Dead by Daylight, but, instead of it being, 4 people in 1, it is 7 people in 1. It's basically just set within the Dragon Ball universe. That's literally the big premise for this one. So, there's nothing wrong with that, of course. But how it lands and how it works, we have to wait and see because, nobody's played it yet. It should be there at Gamescom, because Bandai Namco will be at Gamescom. But yeah, the big thing is obviously the villains that you know, if you're playing as the villain, will be Cell, Freezer, as we're seeing here in the trailer. But that's it. It's you know, they've put on the screen. It's an asymmetrical multiplayer game, so it is literally, you know, 7 players versus 1 player. So yeah, there's nothing too distinct about it other than it's just set in the Dragon Ball universe. I honestly don't know how much more I can say about it, because again, nobody's played it yet, so we have to wait and see on how it's going to go. But you know, the basic gist is you've got to get to the exit before the portal closes, and if you don't, you die. So yeah, again, it's just you know, it's literally just you know, Dragon Ball Dead by Daylight. Not that there's anything wrong with that, you know, but it's you know, one of those weird sort of ones. Speaking of weird, though, we also got a release date overnight for Circus Electrique. So Circus Electrique is a RPG set in a steampunk Victorian London where random citizens are becoming taken over, if you will, by rage and fear, and something else. And then the members of the circus are immune for some reason, so they go out and they try to stop these folks from, you know, causing chaos and killing people and all sorts of stuff. That game is coming on September 6th for all the platforms. So I didn't mention it, but Dragon Ball The Breakers is also all platforms, so it's, you know, PC, PS4, PS5, Xbox One, Xbox Series X and S, and Switch. And Circus Electric is the same. So the big deal with this one is that, you know, you'll move around to various parts of London. When you're in there, it's a sort of, not a side-scroller platform, it's a side-scroller sort of turn-based beat-em-up. So you'll have your circus characters. So you've got the strongman here at the front, you've got the flame eater there, you know, in position 2, and you've got the clown here at the back. If you use the clown, you know, they may only be able to reach to the first person in the enemy's party because of the distance. Let me see, there's a screenshot of that. And there's not, that's wonderful. So yeah, they have a set range, but you can then use the clown to boost, to buff up, you know, say the strongman. So then the strongman's attack will get all 4 of the enemies, so to speak. So yeah, the thing with this one is it's being developed by Zen Studios, who have been spending years developing, you know, the pinball series, so the Pinball FX and, well, maybe not that one. But basically, if there's a digital pinball game you've ever played, fair chance that Zen Studios are the developers of it. This is the first time they've sort of really done anything outside of pinball in quite a while. How this shakes out, we have to wait and see. It's only a couple of weeks away, but it looks cool. It's got sort of, it's not a traditional art style. It kind of has like a 2D backgrounds, like everything's sort of made out of like a cardboard design, but you know, with 3D models and effects and everything. So it could be very fun. We'll just wait and see on that one. With all the good news, though, does come some bad news, and there's been a couple of delays this week. The first one is a bit unexpected because, you know, it's been a while already. But that is that Star Wars Hunters has been delayed yet again. So Star Wars Hunters was announced back in February of 2021 during the Nintendo Direct then. The plan was to have a, you know, end of 2021 release. The game is coming to Switch and mobile devices. The 2021 window was quickly closing, and they announced it would be delayed into early 2022. Early 2022 came and went, and they said it'll be late 2022, and now they've said it's 2023. The reason why is literally the same as you would think from every other thing. They just need more time. It literally, the full statement just says, we're working tirelessly to achieve our vision for Star Wars Hunters. Our ambition is to create a competitive battle arena that will entertain for years to come. To ensure we meet the high expectations we are setting for fans globally and ourselves as developers, we've made the decision to delay the worldwide launch of Star Wars Hunters. So they have done some soft launches or some, you know, not early access, but some sort of, you know, beta testing, if you will, on mobile platforms. So some people have played it. There are videos of people playing the game, you know, on their Android device or their iPhone. So if you want to see what it actually looks like in motion, that does exist. But it's just one of those ones where, you know, they had the game at Star Wars Celebration, people were playing it, people were enjoying it from all the reports that I've seen, and just sort of out of nowhere they said, look, no, we need more time. The weirdest part is, you know, it wasn't dated in 2022, they just said late 2022. So whatever the reason for the delay, you know, let's say it was going to be, say, mid-November, they've realized, you know, 4 months out they can't hit that, so they've pushed it, you know, to next year sometime. You know, delays happen, they do suck, but they do happen, and the end result is usually we have a better game for it. So, you know, we'll just have to wait and see what they do. The other game that got delayed during the week was Avatar: Frontiers of Pandora. So this one's a little stranger again, is because we had this trailer released last year as part of Ubisoft Forward, and then the game went radio silent again. Just before the trailer dropped, we got a few sort of behind-the-scenes videos where they're talking about the engine and the tech that powered everything, but they've been really quiet since. The developer of this one is Massive Studios. Massive are also the same developers that do the Division series, not the Division Resurgence, the mobile game, just the console Divisions. They're also now working on a Star Wars game, so the developer is you know, pretty busy at the moment. But yeah, they opted to delay it from whatever the release date was that they were looking for in 2022 to sometime in the 2023 fiscal year. So the full statement, literally, it came from the financial briefing overnight. Just states, Avatar: Frontiers of Pandora will now release in the 2023-2024 fiscal year. We are committed to delivering a cutting-edge immersive experience that takes full advantage of next-gen technology, as this amazing global entertainment brand represents a major multi-year opportunity for Ubisoft. So pretty much they just wanted to be sure, so they're delaying it. The problem is with the 2023-2024 fiscal year that you know, the North, if you will, sort of goes through, so Japan and the US do it. That runs from April 1st, 2023, so, you know, 9 months from now, through to the end of March 2024. So by them saying it's that fiscal year, it could release on April 1st next year, you know, or April 2nd, April 3rd, but it could also release on, you know, the 28th, 29th, 30th of March. There's simply no way of knowing. We don't have any idea of where it is in terms of its overall position, because we haven't seen anything. So, you know, I'm playing here the trailer if you're watching the video, because it does have some, you know, like, this is all in engine, so it looks fantastic, but we've not seen what the gameplay is supposed to be, right? You know, is Avatar: Frontiers of Pandora a sim management game, right? Are we building houses for the Na'vi, right? Are we on a third-person adventure? Are we locked to first-person the entire time? We literally don't know. We know nothing about this game in terms of what it's going to offer us. So, you know, the fact that we still don't know anything, and it was originally due out this year, does, you know, make things a little sad. But at the same time, it's like, it's not totally unexpected due to the lack of updates we've had on this one. But hey, I mean, Ubisoft are finally bringing Skull and Bones out this year, so, you know, it's not all bad news, he says jokingly. But yeah, so that's sort of all the really bad news. You know, there's a couple of delays, but, you know, it is what it is. These things do happen, and for all the good, you know, that where developers hit their release dates without any issue, there are developers that do struggle or do need more time. You know, and at the end of the day, with any delay, yes, you know, if you're looking forward to a game and that game gets delayed, it's not so much that, you know, the developer needs more time to polish things. They can, as much as I hate it, they can release patches afterwards to polish it. You know, we saw it with Cyberpunk. They, you know, patched that game out the wazoo, and now you know, plays amazing. But, you know, for you know, if they stick to their original planned release date, say Starfield was going to stick to its November release date, that means that the developers themselves had to, you know, they'll be doing overtime. You know, maybe doing 10-hour days instead of 8-hour days, right? Doing 6 days a week instead of 5. You know, so you end up just causing more hassle and more pain to the developers making the game. Whereas, you know, you can delay it 6 months, give them more time to get everything up to scratch without causing them, you know, any suffering. So, As I said, delays do suck, but I'd rather that a game be delayed than the developers get burnt out and hurt making it. Thankfully, the next story is pretty good because these games were all made like 30 years ago. So Nintendo, as they want to do for their older platforms, dropped 3 games today for the Nintendo Entertainment System and the Super Nintendo Entertainment System for the Nintendo Switch Online service. The NES game that we got is God, was it like Die 6 something or other? Let me play the video. Diver Story 6 Imperial of Nisarata. Not exactly the easiest one to say. So that was the NES game that we got. On the Super Nintendo, we got Fighter's History, and then we got a game called Kirby Avalanche, what Nintendo America are calling Kirby Avalanche, which unfortunately means that everyone has to call it Kirby Avalanche because, they don't do different regions. Here we know it as Kirby Crystal Drop. It is a puzzle game featuring Kirby. That is pretty much all it is. It's a very cool puzzle game, but it's just a puzzle game. Fighter History is literally a fighting game. That's great. We don't really have any of those on the Super Nintendo app yet. I'm kidding, of course we do. And I said the Diva one is an NES. It's a side-scrolling thing, kind of like Contra, but not 100% like Contra. This one too is also the Japanese release because it never got an English release. So it's been one of those ones where we've had a few of those over the years. I'm all for Nintendo dropping these things out of nowhere to say, hey, there's more games to be added. I do wish they'd stop dropping 3 games every couple of months. Not saying we need 3 games every month, though that'd be amazing. But I think we need to start we need to start telling Nintendo, hey, you guys could do a game a month, right? You could do the first Friday of every month is update day, right? We get an NES game, a Super NES game, a 64 game, and a Mega Drive game, right? There's literally nothing stopping them from doing that. They've just discovered a release cadence they seem to like, where it's, one Nintendo 64 game a month, a couple of random NES and Super NES games every few months, and then in between that is when Mega Drive drop whatever games they drop. So the release cadence needs to be sorted, but it's still nice that they're adding more and more support to these things as time goes by. Moving on to some we'll call this some fun news, but Nintendo Live is coming back this year in Japan. This is being reported out by Vooks. Nintendo Live is essentially their sort of their fan experience, if you will. Tickets are free. For this year, people have to enter a lottery to get one. They've got to be fully vaccinated and all that sort of stuff. But you'll go there. If you go there, you get to play games. Get to take part in tournaments. They even have live concerts. So if I just throw this one on here, this is the recording from the concert back in 2019 when they last hosted the in-person show. The 2020 and 2021 shows did obviously not take place in person. They didn't even do anything digital. But yeah, they have, they put up digital versions of characters to do things. And I said, this is a Splatoon show. So, as you can see, it was in Japan. It's all there, but they, Nintendo did officially release this in English via subtitles, which is very, very cool. But yeah, what is interesting is this is taking place over the same weekend as PAX Australia. So it's October 8 and 9 in Japan. PAX Australia here is October 7, 8 and 9. So it's potentially possible that Nintendo would do something for both in both locations because, hey, we've got, say, a new demo for a game in Japan. Let's add it to the Switches, in Australia. I say potentially because, anything is possible. It did happen a few years ago with The Last of Us multiplayer. That was officially debuted at Paris Games Week over in Paris, and then PlayStation spent the night. It was done on the Friday for Europe, which was Friday night for us. So PlayStation in Australia spent the night installing the build to a lot of dev consoles. So Saturday and Sunday at PAX Australia, they could have people playing The Last of Us multiplayer. which I think is very, very cool. They didn't have to do that. They already had a PAX booth. But yeah, they wanted to do that just because they were, bringing more content to their fans. So, again, it's possible Nintendo will do something, but, I doubt it. They're not very well known for doing that sort of thing, being that proactive. But, who's to say what they'll do? Also, during the week, we got news for No Man's Sky fans with another update. So the update for this one is called Endurance. So this is the third content update and the fourth update for the year. So one of them was more like an expansion. The other two were big updates. So we had Sentinels and Outlaws were the first sort of big updates. The regular updates. And then Leviathan was the big one. The reason why Endurance is important is because it finally overhauls freighters. So previously freighters were, places you could do things in, but they weren't really bases. They were more just like storage, essentially. But now you can have crew. So you can, have people working or have aliens working on your freighter while you're away doing things for you. And as you can see here, like the size of them is insanely large, which is very, very good because, as this game itself is insanely large, you want to be able to get out there and keep collecting things and not have to start destroying things. We just saw them walking around outside for a bit. You can actually spend a few moments outside in space and just enjoying what's around. But as the entire update is focused, mostly on the freighters. There's a few other things here and there, but the freighters is where everything is at for this one. See, even living frigates. So, what is very, very cool is this game itself. They keep updating it, and because everything is generated as you find it, as you explore. The updates themselves aren't massive. I think No Man's Sky on Xbox Series X is only like 22 gigabytes at the moment. It's a very, very small thing. So you'll be able to go through all that. And as I said, they've updated the comet fields, asteroid fields, whatever you want to call them. So they're not, randomly appearing rocks as you fly through. But yeah, I think it looks fantastic. It'll be interesting to see if this one does come to Switch day one or if it's like an update, later on. Obviously, the game is out for PC, PS4, PS5, Xbox One, and Xbox Series X and S. It does support PlayStation Vita. It does support PlayStation VR. So if you do have a VR headset and a PS4 or PS5, you can play the entire game in VR. It is definitely worth experiencing because it is a very surreal experience. But if you're motion sickness, please don't do that because it will make you very sick. But yeah, so the game is obviously still coming to Switch on October 6th. The same day that it comes to Switch, the PlayStation 5 version will get a physical release. That hasn't happened yet. But yeah, it's very, very cool that they're doing it. And then, still keeping the support for the game coming. Which is in and of itself is insane because this update makes 21. So the game's now 6 years old. When it launched in a pretty, we'll say a rough shape. Wasn't the most, complete experience, but, people did enjoy it. And since then, the developer, which is only like 15 people, at Hello Games, they've spent a lot of time updating it and all that. And these updates have all been free. So, you didn't buy the game for $100 and then have to keep spending $20 every 3 months to add a new update to the game. So, yeah, the fact they're doing all of it for free is very, very cool. Speaking of free, well, with an asterisk there, the PlayStation tiers have been updated for PlayStation Plus. So obviously last month, the PlayStation Plus got its overhaul for its various tiers. So the default PlayStation Plus that everyone was on was rebranded to the Essential tier. And then they added the Ultra and the Deluxe. Sorry, Extra and Deluxe. The PlayStation Plus Extra provides you with a library of PS4 and PS5 games. They range from, everything from, BioShock to Grand Theft Auto and Avengers and all that sort of stuff. And then the deluxe is where you get the PS1, PS2, and PSP games. They did promise that, there would be some day one inclusions, much like Xbox Game Pass has with, the Microsoft published titles. And that happened last week with Stray. So Stray is the cat game. You see the cat in the middle there if you're watching the video. That's included as part of the membership. So if you have the PlayStation Plus Extra, which I believe is around $17 or $18 a month, you get that game as part of the membership. Somebody did ask me today if they had that game, if they upgraded to that plan, got the game and then downgraded the plan, do they get to keep the game? And I said no. If you downgrade to the Essential plan, all the extra games, so the PS4, PS5 games that you get as part of the extra or the deluxe tiers become inaccessible. Much in the same way that any games in your PlayStation Plus library become inaccessible if you don't renew your membership. Okay. PlayStation 5 players also get, Final Fantasy VII Remake Integrate, and I said Marvel's Avengers. And then across the board for PS4 and PS5, a bunch of Assassin's Creed games from Ubisoft got added, Saints Row, a couple of those got added, and a bunch of outright games. So the Ice Age, Jumanji, and Paw Patrol, they're all from outright games who focus a lot on not on children's, but they focus on, the younger demographic. They're all available in the extra tier. If you have the deluxe tier, you also get No Heroes Allowed, Loco Roco Midnight Carnival, and Echo Shift, all PSP games. They're adding a good selection of games across both tiers. Obviously, you're only getting 3 games on the deluxe tier. So if you're paying $22 a month for that tier and you're only getting 3 additional games beyond the regular library, you may be questioning about the value on that side. But otherwise, it's pretty good value across the board. Through adding 10 or 12 games every month to the service. Obviously, some people will have already played all the Assassin's Creed, so maybe they're not that keen on this update. But for people who haven't, or maybe they started years ago and then got sidetracked with something else, this is their chance to experience them again as part of that. Those Assassin's Creed games are a part of the Ubisoft Plus Classics collection, which is actually a service you can get on its own. So you don't need the PlayStation Plus enhancements to get that if you want it. So if you don't want PlayStation Plus anymore, but you want a Ubisoft collection of games, you can get that on its own. I think it's like $12 or $13 anyway. So it actually makes better sense to get the PlayStation Plus because you get it included. Much like with EA Play on Xbox, it's included as part of the Ultimate tier. Where if you had Xbox Live Gold and EA Play separately, it would end up being just slightly more. So that's one there for you. We're going to jump into a little bit of PlayStation. Well, we're continuing the PlayStation news now. I just remembered we were talking about it. And we're going to look at The Last of Us Part 1 for PlayStation 5. So earlier today, PlayStation released a developer diary for the remake of The Last of Us. I know PlayStation officially call it The Last of Us Part 1, but that's not what it was called when it was released. And it's absolutely pointless to call it that. It's like Lucasfilm or George Lucas, renaming the original Star Wars to Star Wars Episode 4: A New Hope, when Return of the Jedi and Empire Strikes Back released. That's cool and all, but nobody calls it that. They just call it Star Wars, because if you say, hey, we're going to watch Star Wars, people generally assume you mean the original. This one is... I honestly don't like the fact they've done this. They're remaking the remaster. So this is a PS5 exclusive. It's not going to PS4. So PS4 players will get the remaster still. That's still available. But if you want, the enhanced visuals, the fixed sort of gameplay mechanics, what was the other thing they did? The accessibility stuff, they overhauled it. All the bits and pieces that came from The Last of Us Part 2. Those things are all exclusive to the PlayStation 5 version, so you'll have to get that version if you want those features, if you want those changes. As you can see, they've updated the model for Ellie, for Joel, to make them look, similar to what they were originally. Originally in The Last of Us Part 2. It's all very cool, but at the same time, I mean, the developers seem very cool, very happy about it, but it is a remake of a remaster, which is in and of itself a stupid thing to be saying. So yeah, I won't show the whole video here because it does go for over 10 minutes where they go into a lot of things. But yeah, I mean, it's very cool seeing the behind the scenes, seeing what they're doing to make everything better across the board. I just don't think it's one of those ones where they really worked out exactly what they were trying to do with it until, they do it. Neil Druckmann says at the start of the video that it was when they were doing the flashback sequences from The Last of Us Part 2, when they were looking at events that happened in the first game, they had to remake those parts for Part 2, and they sort of said, oh, why don't we just do the whole game? That logic on how to make a game, like, how does a game get greenlit, that seems weird to me. And again, the fact that I can't get my head around this. It's a remake of a remaster. Like, that in and of itself is just stupid. But, it is what it is. It should be fun to play. The game itself initially was fun. Last of Us Part 2 was fun to play. Story-wise was, tripe, but the actual gameplay was solid. So more of that is okay by me. Speaking of solid gameplay, we actually got our first look at Spider-Man Remastered running on PC. So the reason why we got that is because they released a PC features trailer like they like to do. So the big thing with this one is, uncapped frame rate, ultra-wide monitor support, RTX or real-time ray tracing, NVIDIA DLSS, all the big fancy bells and whistles that we, expect on modern PC games. The PC port of Spider-Man has it. It's not news because we totally expected it to happen. But, at the same time, it's still great to see it all going. So, if you're watching the video, seeing here, new shadows and lighting to make things look better. This is not the best way of displaying it, but there's, ultra-wide display support. So if you're someone who's rocking one of those, 34, 37 ultra-wide curved displays, you can now, it'll fill the full screen. It's not going to leave you with giant black bars on the side of it. But yeah, it's interesting. Unlock frame rate for a game where the combat is very time sensitive. I worry about that a little bit, but at the same time, it could be fun. That was the thing. I saw that in the trailer, and it surprised me, is that the DualSense controller is supported. So if you have a PS5 and you don't have the game on the PS5, but you want to play it, and you've got a powerful PC, you can play it with all the bells and whistles that the PS5 remaster has on your PC with the PS5 controller. So you can use any regular controller. You're not required to use the DualSense controller, but if you do have it, you'll get some good effects from it. They did release a bunch of screenshots for it as well, but they also did release the specs for what is required. So the minimum specifications require an NVIDIA GTX 950 or the AMD equivalent, a Core i3 or AMD equivalent, 8 gigabytes of RAM, a staggering 75 gigabytes of hard drive space for storage. But if you want everything turned on, so you want ray tracing at 4K, you need a NVIDIA RTX 3080 or an AMD RX 6950. So you need the big end graphics cards to run everything at 4K 60 with RTX enabled. Which again, that's not something that the PS5 can do. The PS5 can do 4K or it can do RTX. It can't do both at the same time. It can do it for games made for the PlayStation 5, but ports, it's never been able to do it. None of the games have done it. So, yeah. I don't know if I'll be playing this one. I did beat the game on the PS4 back in the day. I enjoyed it. I thought it was a fantastic experience there. Don't know if I need to rush out and do it again on the PC. That being said, I probably will because I'm a glutton for punishment. Speaking of punishment, Atari's coming back. So the Atari 2600 is coming back in Lego form. This was leaked a few months ago as coming. Nobody confirmed anything, as Lego never confirm anything. They never even, comment on any rumors. very much like Nintendo. But yeah, in celebration of Atari's 50th year this year, the Atari 2600 is being rebuilt like Lego. So very much like the Lego NES. They're doing a replica of the console. It is a 1-to-1 scale. It's got all the wood grain textures that the old box had. It's got the plastic. It's got the switches that you can flick here and there. As you can see, there's a sort of a hidden compartment that offers thing. It does take cartridges. The cartridges themselves can will house artwork. You're seeing them there. So like a little set, little scene from the game that it's based on. So if we come up here, so here's Adventure. It's a little castle with a snake. For Centipede, it's literally the centipede, and then from Asteroids, it's the ship blasting asteroids. Now these don't live inside the game, the replica game cases that you make, but they are there to be made. I think it looks very, very cool. Unfortunately, it does come with a big price bump. It is $370 Australian. The reason why is Lego has said, a few months back, with the cost of everything increasing, they have to raise their prices. Never mind the fact that the company has opened up 3 factories, or opening 3 factories, over the past couple of years, one being built now. So they're making more and more Lego in more and more factories around the world. But they still decided to up their prices to pass back to the consumer. Even though they're making billions of dollars a year, they still decided to up their prices. So who knows why they do what they do. I think it looks very, very cool. I mean, I'm not an Atari, 2600 fan. I had a friend in school who had one. I remember going over to their place and playing it for a while. But when I was doing that, I also had a Super Nintendo at home. So this is obviously a very old, very antiquated piece of tech compared to the Super Nintendo, but it's very, very cool that they have it. And unlike the Atari box that they tried, getting people to spend, $900 for a couple of years ago, this one should actually sell. Finally, the last sort of big news story that we're going to talk about this week is FIFA 23. So, we'll still get into the games coming out the next week. That's still what we're going to do afterwards. But we're going to talk about FIFA 23. Specifically, the fact that I've been playing FIFA 23. So I've been playing it for, weekish now? Week or so. And yeah, so I've been playing it. I've been enjoying it. It is very different to what I was expecting. But that's because they've improved so much of it. So let's get into FIFA. So FIFA 23 is the next iteration of the FIFA series from EA. I could just say that and leave it there because for most people that's all they really care about. But then there are the FIFA fans, the ones that play the game every year and really get into the nitty gritty details. Now there's a lot of stuff that I know that I can't talk about until EA announce it, but we'll talk about what we can. So they did 3 stories during the week. The first is that on the Ultimate Edition cover, which is the big sort of special edition of the game, that'll feature Kylian Mbappe for the 3rd year in a row. He's on a FIFA cover, and then Australian Sam Kerr, who we're seeing on the screen now in her Chelsea uniform. Sam Kerr is the captain of the Matildas. She is a very, very heavily awarded player. She's done won a lot of trophies in the sport of soccer or football, depending on where you are in the world. And this marks the debut that she will be on a cover globally. So FIFA 23, which is the last FIFA game, because EA don't have the license after this year, the last game ever to be made for EA Sports FIFA is the first game to feature a female soccer player on the cover of the sport globally. So back in 2006, I think it was, 2006, 2009, one of those ones. Here in Australia and New Zealand, we did have some Socceroos players on the cover, but that was a localized release. This one is Sam Kerr is on the cover of the Ultimate Edition globally. Here in Australia and New Zealand, the cover for us will be Sam Kerr. So for the PS4, PS5, Xbox Series X and S and Xbox One releases, it'll be Sam Kerr. That cover will also be available via Amazon. So if you're living in the US or you're living in the UK or Japan or anywhere else and you buy FIFA from Amazon, you'll get the Sam Kerr cover. If you're living in the US and you buy FIFA 23 from Walmart or Best Buy, you'll get Kylian Mbappe. The game is coming to Switch, but the Legacy Edition for Switch just shows Mbappe. We don't know if Sam Kerr will be on the one here. EA unfortunately haven't confirmed it at this point. They also, apart from like when the crossplay, which we'll get into in a moment, they ignored Switch entirely because it's the Legacy Edition. So they had a separate press release for the Switch version. And even when they say FIFA 23 is coming out on September 30, which is the release date, they don't talk about the Switch version. Even though it's coming out on the same day and is branded FIFA 23, they just sort of ignore it. So yeah, it's a bit weird. But yeah, so that's the covers for the game. In terms of inclusions, there are two really big inclusions for this year. The first is that the women's clubs are being added to the game. So we've had some support for female teams in the past few years. And when I say some support, I mean very little support. This year, though, the Barclays Women's Super League and the Division 1 Arkama leagues are both being included, right? So this is not like 2 or 3 teams. This is the full leagues are being added to the game. What this allows for is, they're going to have all the players from the clubs. That means with their inclusion, there are now more than 19,000 players recreated for FIFA 23 from over 700 teams that include over 100 stadiums from around the world and 30 different leagues from around the world. So when they say, soccer is the world's game, this makes sense because, with just how much is in there. So FIFA 23 is going to feature, the UEFA Champions League, the UEFA Europa League, Europa Conference League, CONMEBOL Libertadores, CONMEBOL Sudamericana, the Premier League, Bundesliga, and La Liga Santander. So it's basically all the major soccer leagues globally in the one game, now including the women's. So here you can see, a screenshot of one of the female players. I don't know who that is, but it's there. FIFA 23 will feature the same sort of modes that people know, so a career mode, pro clubs, FIFA Ultimate Team, Volta Football. I know much more about those, but I have to wait until I can talk about them. The big addition that I think is very, very cool is it now offers a robust training mode, or training center is what they're calling it. During that, anytime, even in the middle of the game, if you need to learn how to do something, you can jump into the training center and learn how to do that kick, or how to pass the ball, or whatever you're trying to do. And if you're a newcomer, the game will walk you through in a very simplified manner, trying to get you to understand why the rule of offside exists, and how to kick the ball and how to pass to your teammates and dribble and all that. The next generation versions of the game, so that is Xbox Series X and S, PS5, and PC. The PC version is being upgraded from the, being in the years past, it was the same version as, say, PS4. It's now the same as the PS5. That is using what EA call Hypermotion 2, which is their upgraded version of Hypermotion. The Hypermotion tech essentially watches real games and records the data, seeing how people move on an actual pitch. So it's essentially motion capture, but instead of it being, one person in a booth, or 2 or 3 people in a booth, it is an entire team on a real pitch. So it's not a simulated experience, it's an actual game, right? So Hypermotion itself takes all that information and draws the animation, the frames that you need to complete the action. So if you're running down the pitch and you sort of move to the left, then move to the right, and back to the left, and back to the right again, right? Nobody at EA could have predicted that would be what you would do at that particular time, right? With somebody maybe coming in to try and tackle you. Hypermotion draws all that in real time as you're making those decisions to keep everything running smooth. With the upgrades to the system, there are now better dribbling animations. So when you're dribbling the ball down the pitch, you're actually going to be doing it. The ball won't be so floaty. the game also has new acceleration mechanics. So pretty much at the moment, a player's top speed stat will say something, and everyone moves sort of at the same pace. But some players in the real world, they'll get off the mark quick, so they can get to the ball quick, but maybe they can't run the pitch right at full speed, so they will hold off on that. I'll move the thing down here so you can see a picture at least. So they won't be able to run the whole field at full speed the whole time, because that's not what they do. Me myself, I can sprint for 50 meters no problem, but if you ask me to run a kilometer, I'm going to struggle, right? So same way here, there are soccer players that are great off the mark, and then they'll slow down. There's some that they have to warm up, essentially. They take a bit of time to get their speed going, but once they do, they hit their top speed and they keep going. So that will allow for them to do that as well. The mechanics themselves, so there's 3 tiers to it. I'm just bringing up my notes, so I actually have them on my screen. That's not what I needed. There it is. So they call it accelerate. So the things are explosive for the players that are off the mark quicker, lengthy, so they're the ones that are slower to start but eventually get up to speed, and then controlled. And controlled is sort of your general, they're pretty good off the mark, they're pretty good at top speed, but maybe they're not the best overall, right? So the players will actually have different stats. So if you're playing as Mbappe, right, he may have been great off the start last year, kept his speed up the whole time, but now this year he may be an explosive type, so he may get off the mark quick, but then somebody else may build up speed and catch him down the line. So that's one of the things. They also did some improvements to the awareness AI. So now if you're running down the pitch and somebody's coming in to tackle you, your player will be aware that somebody's there. So when you're, if you are tackled, it's not going to be a bit of a janky, oh, hang on, we have to switch to this animation because somebody came out of nowhere. It'll actually be aware of it, so they'll react more natively and more naturally to what is happening. And then the visuals, the art director pointed out that the grass is now greener. There's more to it than that, but we'll talk about that another day. The other big news, though, that they announced this week is that crossplay is coming to the game. So this is where we're getting into things. So first of all, Switch players, there's no crossplay for you because you're still playing FIFA 19. They've updated the characters, stadiums, bits and pieces, but the core gameplay is still the same. So yeah, you're still playing FIFA 19, so no crossplay for you. If you're playing on PlayStation 4, you can only play against people on PlayStation 4 or Xbox One. So they do have a little graph here. Okay. If you're playing on PlayStation 5 or Xbox Series X or S or PC, you can cross-play with anyone from those platforms as well. So if you have a PS5 and your mate has a PS4, and you both want to play FIFA 23 together, you cannot play crossplay. It is only possible on the same generation of platforms. So the PS5, Xbox Series X, they call that Generation 9, I think that's what they call it. Whatever it is. So PS5 to Xbox Series X and S, or PS5 or PC, but no to PS4 or Xbox One. You can play, straight up against friends in just friendlies and foot, which is FIFA Ultimate Team. And if you do matchmaking, you've got online seasons, foot rivals, foot championships, all that stuff. Now, this is one of those things. They did do a Q&A, essentially an FAQ for it. And there is one specific thing they called out that I think is a bit weird. If you turn off crossplay, so you're on PS4, you only want to play on PS4, you only want to play against people who have PS4. If you turn off crossplay, they're saying they can't guarantee you'll get a match quickly, because they're going to prioritize the people that have crossplay first. So if you're playing and your mate's playing, but he has crossplay turned on, he might be matched with somebody on Xbox One, and you're waiting for somebody who's just on PS4 without crossplay. It may not be one of those things where it's going to happen all the time, but they wanted to call it out to say, hey, it is there, just be aware of it. Finally, as I said, the Switch version is still there. It is still the Legacy Edition. So the gameplay in FIFA 23 on Switch is the same as FIFA 22 on Switch, which was the same as FIFA 21 on Switch, which was the same as FIFA 20 on Switch, which is the same as FIFA 19 on Switch. So the core gameplay has not changed. They may have tweaked things here or there, to improve things. Maybe they had to replace an animation or something. So there will be changes, but the core gameplay is still the same. The big changes are obviously that the Women's League is being included. So the Women's Leagues are being included. So much like the other console versions, the Switch owners will still get that as well, which means they'll get new stadiums, new players, and all that. The rosters have been updated. So if a player was with one club last year, is now with a different club this year. The FIFA 23 on Switch will reflect that. The presentation's all updated as well, so the new front end are there and all the bits and pieces as well. But otherwise, the core gameplay is still the same, for FIFA 23 on Switch as it was for FIFA 19 on Switch. The fact that the Switch itself has sold, over 100 million consoles, which is the PS5 and Xbox Series X and S, are nowhere near, even combined. The fact that the Switch still hasn't been able to get an updated version of FIFA is honestly, it's pathetic and it's insulting. I will admit I am not the biggest sports game fan. I enjoy them occasionally, but I'm not gung-ho for them all the time. The problem that I have with this is that EA came out strong. They released FIFA 18. It was missing a bunch of features. They, essentially within a year, they added so much to FIFA 19 from FIFA 18. They listened to the players, they updated everything, they made great strides with it. And then they gave up. They did 1 year where they tried, and it didn't sell, 100,000 copies every second. So they gave up. And that's all you can say about it. EA's support for Switch has been mediocre at best. This is a bit ranty, I know, but, we have the Need for Speed remaster, we have the Burnout remaster, which are great, but they're remasters of old games. And people will point to games like, Lost in Random, right? Yeah, cool. But that's an EA original, which is not developed by EA. That was developed by Zoink. Lost in Random was developed by Thunderful. But that's my point, is that these games aren't developed by EA. They're just helping with the publishing and distribution of the titles. We got, via EA Originals, we got the dodgeball one. Its name eludes me right now. From Valen. Knockout City. There you go. I had it in my head, I just couldn't put the words together. Right, so we've had Switch games, under the EA label, but they've all been developed externally. There's no Madden on Switch. There's no golf on Switch. There's no technically NBA from EA on Switch because there's no EA NBA at the moment, right? We've had EA have, obviously, Star Wars games, Battlefield games. EA have been doing a lot, but, they're never on Switch. And you can argue, yes, they brought Apex Legends to Switch, but Apex Legends makes them a lot of money, so they're going to put that on every platform, as evident by the fact that it's now a mobile. But in terms of, new original games or new entries in a series on Switch, EA just don't seem to care, which is a shame. Right. That is the end of the news. As I said, it is an eclectic week. As I said, we had, release date reveals, release delays, Lego, we had PlayStation updates, and of course, the deep dive into FIFA. In terms of the games coming over the next 7 days, so that is obviously the 23rd of July, being tomorrow. Don't expect anything for that date because it is a weekend and games generally do not release on a Saturday. So we're looking for Monday, the 24th of July, through to the 29th of July, which is next Friday. On the 26th of July, Story Seasons Pioneers of Olive Town will arrive for PlayStation 4. The game's been out on PC and Switch for some time. It's just now making its way to the PS4. Excuse me, on the 27th, the mobile version of Octopath Traveler. So it's not a mobile port of the game, it is a mobile version of Octopath Traveler. Sort of same universe, maybe similar characters, all the bits and pieces. That's coming to mobile as well. The 28th is a bit of a busy-ish day. So Zur Striker Gunvolt 3 is coming to Switch on that day, along with Bear and Breakfast. That is a PC and Switch game where you are a bear who wants to run a bed and breakfast in the woods, but there's something else in the woods with you. Captain Velvet Meteor, The Jump Plus Dimensions is also coming to Switch on the 28th. That is based around the Shonen Jump manga collection from Japan. So, there are characters from a bunch of animes, including, say, Lloyd Forger from Spy X Family. The 29th, however, is the big one. So that'll see the release of Digimon Survive finally for all for PC, Switch, PS4, and Xbox One. It is backwards compatible with PS5 and Xbox Series X and S, but there's no specific version for the game there. That'll also see Madison finally come to Switch that day. That game's been out on PC and PS4 for a couple of weeks now. Story of Seasons Pioneers of Olive Town. Sorry, I duplicated my list. Ignore me. That was earlier on. And then obviously Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is the big game for Friday. And that is sort of the last game of the month because, the next couple of days will be weekends. But yeah, that is the game. So, Digimon Survive should be interesting. I don't know how people will go with it. It's been in development hell for a while. We still really don't know what the gameplay is going to be like. It doesn't look like it's like an open world, adventure. It looks sort of like an isometric battler, which could be fun, and obviously Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is there as well. If we have a quick looking to, August, 2 Point Campus is coming, Blossom Tales 2 is coming, Thymesia is coming, Madden is next month as well, Saints Row, Pac-Man, and a bunch of others. So, looks like there's going to be a lot of things to enjoy in August as well. That, of course, brings us to the end of another episode of Maxi-Geek Show. So thank you for watching live. Thank you for watching if you did watch us live. If you watched the replay on YouTube, I hope it was entertaining. We do record these episodes every Friday at 7 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time, so 7 p.m. Sydney time. We will be back next Friday with another episode of the show. What news awaits us, we just have to wait and see. Before then, we will be back on Tuesday for more James Bond as part of our the 60th anniversary of James Bond. We've been playing through all the console games since GoldenEye. We are on game number 11 of 13, so we are approaching the end of this saga. We may be back on Sunday for Sunday sessions. Those are a bit more of a random thing, but we'll see what happens. But yeah, we'll be back on Tuesday for James Bond, and then back on Friday for more Maxi-Geek Show. So thank you for watching, and until we see you online next time, happy gaming.